All right, ready, set, go. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do a really kind of basic thing where we import an image into the P5 landscape here. And what we need to do is there's a couple little like kind of tricks to it. It's not super obvious, and I don't know if they've kind of done that by design just to kind of discourage people a little bit, because I'm sure it takes up server space. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to import one of these images that you'll see up here above. They're profile pics that I have from Twitter, and the default one I have that I kind of stole off of my Twitter one, which had already resized it for me and helped me crop it. I'm going to take that one, and I think it's actually at a 400 by 400 resolution. If I wanted to look that up, you can often, if you're on a Mac, you can do a properties on it and get info. I think you can on a Mac. And if you're on a PC, you can open it up, and I think do exactly the same thing to find out. I don't really want to see myself, believe it or not. But we can see here the dimensions are, and it actually says kind of where it was coming from. But regardless, I'm dealing with right now a 400 by 400 pixel image. If you don't know how to resize your image, there's a couple different ways you can do it. I'm not going to cover it right here. You could Google it. It's pretty easily. There's some web tools you can do it. There are, in this case, I've actually just pulled it from my Twitter feed. And if you want to, we put in the comments, and I will do a new lesson just for this particular thing for Mac, PC, and on a web version. I've actually did one also where you could do it coding all in here. It's a little bit convoluted, and I started down that path with the earlier video and have chosen to take that one out of the repertoire for this particular example, because coding that all out took a number of steps and turns, and I think it would take another half a week or 2 days to kind of explain it really well. Regardless, here we go. We're going to import this image, and to do that, you need to first have your image, and then come over here to the left-hand side of the screen, and there is, once you started it off, I've already actually created this. I put in a little comment at the beginning. I have done a file save to now get my project saved and the auto save enabled. But right here, there's this little arrow here that will let you click on that. Once you do that, you now have this option to, on this other smaller down arrow, add a file. And this is not intuitive where it is. It doesn't look like it's like an open or import. It's not anywhere I've seen in the menu here. Oh, you can do it under Sketch, the add file under Sketch. But if you want to see the actual ones you've imported, they're all kind of hidden down here. So what I'm going to do is, there's two ways to do just about everything in the world of computers. So I'll start with the one on the top for this one. And when you do it, I don't want to actually type in add file, the name here. I just really want to drag in the picture I'm going to use. So here I'm going to drag in this picture. It's going to upload it very quickly here. And then once it's fully done, I can go ahead and close this. And I should now see it. If that one worked over there, you should see that it is here listed over on the side. And let me zoom in on that one real quick. And you can see there it is. It is there. If I click on it, I don't actually see it. I do have an option here if I wanted to rename it. Try to make your name something easy, because you're going to have to use that in your code. So if the name's too complicated, in this case, maybe there's a little bit of a complication because it's a capital T and a capital P, but I prefer that kind of camel casing when you have the big letter for each word. You can delete them from there if you need be, but right now I know that's my word and I'm going to keep it. Now the other files that are here definitely are something we should mention. The sketch is what we've been working in all this time. And all of this is really just on a web page. So if you look, there's an index file here as well. And this one, don't change things in here unless you kind of want to break your code. But if you wanted to download all this code and host it on your own website, then you would need to come into here and mess with the HTML and adjust it so it works with your files and your site if you were going to host this material all by yourself. There's also enclosed here, there's an index, and where there's an index HTML, there's usually some sort of CSS. And all that's doing is saying that there is a block for the display, and that canvas is where we're actually doing all of our fancy JavaScript stuff in there right now. So let's click on our JavaScript, the sketch.js, which is our JavaScript, and now we can get to our coding. Now, what do we do? How do we import that image? This is where we need to go and check our reference to make sure that we have the right syntax when we do this. You could do a search on this page, or you can just actually look. This is one of those big ones where there's at the top here that have the big categories that are used really fairly often. So I'm going to click on image. I come down. It's a whole section just for the images. I actually, in this case, I'm not trying to create an image or save the canvas, although I want to do that later. What I'm looking to do is load and display an image. So the very first one here, if I click on load image, it gives me a nice little block of code here. And this code is great, except it's talking about using assets here. That's a folder actually on their site that's sharing that. We don't need that in the P5 construct because it's going to be in the same file as the JavaScript. So let me very quickly here, I'm going to snag these 4 lines, and then I'll explain them once I take them over. Now I just did a Control-C to copy it, or you could do it from here, Control-C, and now I'm jumping back to my sketch. Now this does not go inside of the setup or the draw, so this is something a little different. This is one we haven't done before. This is a preload. I'm going to tell it to load up this image before I start doing anything with it and manipulating and doing things or even displaying it. If I paste that one in, here's what I'm using to start off with. I'm saying let the image variable be, like I'm saying create that image variable. And then from there I'm saying preload, and that's a built-in type of function, sort of like setup, but it happens even before then. It wants to then do this. Image, load image, assets, la defense. And that's not the one we have. The one we have here is the Twitter pic, and there's no folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out everything that's inside those quotes, single quotes there, and I'm going to write in Twitter pic. Oops. And making sure I keep the same case. When I do that, now it's going to preload when I run this, and you'll notice that there'll be a little bit of a loading screen over here as I do that. So let's watch as we do that. Click. You'll see a little bit of a load. Now it's done at once, so it's kind of in cache, but it's doing that little bit of load. Now, it's loaded, but we're not telling it to display. And just like any functions that we might make, it's not doing it till we call it. So let's go back and look at the example. So we did these first couple lines, but here in the setup, here is where we can actually have the image command say, hey, put the image which is stored in that variable at 0, 0, which is the X and the Y location for it. So that'll be the top left corner. Like you're making a rectangle, this will be your top left corner. So if you wanted to place it there, you could, or wherever you want that image to actually be. So the parameters and things in this one aren't as clear maybe, but let's try it out. So if I were to put it in here, oops, too much. Well, I'll just type it in because I know it off the top of my head. Image, comma, 0, comma, 0. Now, when I run this one, I've just put that into my setup and I run it, but when it loads, I see this grayish screen again. And that is because inside the draw, I have this background that covers it up immediately. I'm just going to take the background out altogether and not have anything in my draw in this case. Partly because when I run this now, it's going to do the setup, it's going to show the picture, which I kind of wish I had used a different picture, but it actually is able to display that image there. So here we've done a couple of really quick things. Let me zoom in real quick one more time. We've created a variable that can hold the image. We told the preload function to load the image, and we have already uploaded or added the file to it, and we're telling it to equal that image variable. We now then can take the image command and tell it to print or display that image at a location that has the X and the Y value. Now, if I wanted to get kind of crazy here, I could take this same image one, take it out of here, put it into the draw, and now it'll draw it all the time. But if I wanted to maybe make it follow my mouse, or mouse X, mouse Y, I can do that. hit play, and now as I move it over, you can see that top corner is the location that's following my mouse. So we're not quite there yet, but that has gotten us in. I want to have it for right now just be at 0, 0, and I'll be perfectly happy with that for now. I'm just going to undo a couple times, undo, 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 Control Z, back to here, so I have it at the very starting point. So this is going to allow me to start and layer and do things on top of that, but tune in for the next one where we start to sample the image data and then do more with it through for loops and things like that. So tune in next time.